Hello there, my name is Allie and I would like to welcome you to this paint along. So if you are new, I always like to kind of introduce myself, tell you a little bit about what we are about to do here. So I do live paint alongs every Monday evening at 5 Eastern, and we work in different series. So we are actually doing the second paint along in the landscape series. And last week we had a really great time doing the forest morning paint along, and so many of you were doing that one with me, and we just, some really beautiful pieces came out of it. I see many of you are jumping into the demo here, and I'd love for you to say hello in the comments so that I know you're watching, and let everyone else know where in the world you are watching from, because we have people all over the place that join us every week for these demos. And it's always fun to see all the different places that you all are. So many of you are not only watching, but you are also painting with me. So some of you paint with me live, some of you watch the replay later and paint with me, and some of you just kind of watch and absorb every week. But those of you that are painting this piece, you downloaded the outlines, and if you don't know about this, I offer a download that has the outlines, like what's on my panel here. I offer that on my website, alliekstudio.com, and you can actually print it out and trace it. So everybody who's painting with me now, you've got your panels already prepared. So we use transfer paper or just kind of chalked the back of the panel to get those outlines on there. And then we just painted over them using kind of a light purple and a skinny little script liner brush. Hi Judy, I see you're painting with me. Hi Nancy in Colorado, thank you for joining me. So this is, this paint along is called Walk in the Woods. Yeah, that's what it is. So, all right, how about we jump right in and get started on this piece. So this is an 8x10 panel that I'm working on. So that's the size of the transfer that you will have downloaded. Hi Adrian, I see you're painting with me. I love it. Somebody commented on my lipstick. I never ever wear makeup, guys, but you know, today I just wanted to feel a little fancy, so here we are. All right, so let's jump in here. I'm gonna move the camera and hopefully angle it so that you can see my reference image as well as my palette, or some of it. Let's make sure we can get it all in there. Hi Debbie and Donna in Missouri. All right, glad so many of you are joining me. Let's make sure we can get that. And you know, I mentioned the other day how you can actually watch these paint-alongs on the Facebook Watch app on your TV. So if you don't know about that, that's a great way to see these really large on your TV. You just download that app. And then you can see it bigger. And then also, if you're painting with me, you can have your image on your tablet next to your painting, and then you could have the video going on your TV. So little tip there. All right, so let's jump in. As I mentioned, I painted over these outlines using a skinny little script liner brush like this, and I just mixed up a light purple that I made from titanium white, Payne's gray, and alizarin crimson. And we are using golden fluid acrylics for this piece. So if you got the download, I have a list of the paints that I buy, that I use, and the ones I'm using specifically for this piece. But if you don't have these specific paints, don't let that stop you. I'm sure you can try to mix up what you have. I just really like golden. I think it's the best. And I like the fluid acrylics because they just move really nice. So that is my preference. All right, so what we are going to do to start out with is we're going to start finding the shadows, and we're going to mix up a purple using Payne's Gray and alizarin crimson. And we're going to use this recipe, which is basically the same recipe that I use in all of my paintings for doing this wash of the shadows. So it doesn't really matter what color the painting is. I usually almost always start kind of the same way. And so I've got this very watered down, and I'm using square tip brushes. That's what I like. And I'm just looking for the large areas of dark. So it's pretty dark up here in the corner. And I've got the outlines on here, and those kind of indicate the large areas of light and dark. So I traced over this image to create this outlines template for you. So we're looking, and I've got kind of the major branches that are outlined here. And I'm looking to see here its shadow behind the branch. So I'm kind of painting around those lines. And I'm just comparing like which side of the line was dark and which side was light. Here, this line indicates a dark shape. So it might flip back and forth. And just kind of moving forward, these two lines indicate a light branch. So I'm going to paint on the outside of them to show that that is a light branch. And probably my biggest piece of advice when painting landscapes like this is to not try to include everything. We are just looking for the major shapes of light and dark. So that's what I was looking for when I was creating this template for you, is just those major lines of trees and masses of light and dark, but I left a lot out because otherwise it would just get way too busy, way too much to paint in a 1-hour demo. And I should mention I am kind of checking back with you all and looking at the comments. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type those into the comments. I have a bit of a delay on the comments coming through on my end, so I don't always get them immediately, but I try to check back and see if anything new is coming in. And if I happen to miss your comment, because I'm not looking at the screen, I do always go back after the demo and read through all the comments, and I try to type my answers. So please still write your comments in there, and I will do my very best to give everybody an answer. Yeah, so I'm looking and I'm squinting a lot. So these two figures are both pretty dark. So I'm just going to give those a little wash in there because there's light around them. And when you're painting teeny little figures like this, there's not going to be a lot of detail. And actually putting in too much detail is what can make them look kind of fake. So really less is more when you are putting in tiny little figures like that. We're just doing a quick wash there to show that there's something going on there. It's all pretty dark over here. These are some masses of leaves that are kind of cutting through right here. We've got a dark shape, a dark tree trunk going through right there. And then this is kind of the edge of the landscape that's kind of cutting through there. And then there's a dark shadow here coming around where their feet are. And I should always, I point out, look at how far back I'm holding my brush. That is really important to be able to kind of get your brush strokes to move, to be able to work the whole canvas and not get so tied up on the details. So definitely try that. And let that paint flow. Don't get so tight on your brush. And that is much easier said than done, I know, but really it's just something that kind of takes practice. So as I'm working around here, I'm kind of gradually chipping away at these outlines. So you don't really want those outlines to show through in the end. That was just kind of our roadmap. That was just showing us where the shapes of light and dark are coming through. But as I'm layering on top of them, those lines are going to kind of go away. We don't really want to see all of those. And you can always watch these demos as a replay too. So if you are just watching tonight and taking it all in, you can definitely go back and you can find this as a replay on my Facebook page. It's just under the videos tab. You'll see all of my paint alongs, and you can get the downloads for all of my paint along outlines on my website anytime. So, and also the download includes a link to it, so you can always find it. But I know a lot of people like to watch it live and then paint it on their own later because it goes a little bit slower. They can pause it. I know I paint really quickly, but that's just so that we can get a whole painting in an hour, right? You guys don't want to sit here all evening with me. Maybe some of you do. I would love that, but my children are always, you know, wondering where dinner is. So actually, I shouldn't say that because my husband usually makes dinner on Monday nights, and he would totally bust me if he knew that I was saying that I had to make dinner, because I really don't. All right, so this is still just alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. I'm just looking for those large shapes of dark. And another good little tip when you're doing a landscape like this, when there's a lot of trees and a lot going on, is paint the trees that are really noticeable first. Like this one is very dramatic. You can find it right there. And sometimes once you get those like easy to find trees and objects, then the other ones kind of fall into place because you kind of have context clues. So if you're hung up, just move somewhere else and find the easy shapes, and that will help you. I need to mix up a little bit more of my alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. And it doesn't matter if it's going to be the exact same shade of purple, because it doesn't matter. We're going to cover all of this up anyways. This is just our very early map of what's what. Okay, we've got this angled tree here. We're going to drop that in. Then we've got this one coming through, and then these kind of all connect a little bit. Drop those in there. You can see this new shade of purple is a little bit different, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be the same. It's actually better if we have some variation, right? Okay, we got some large masses of dark coming through here. Got some bits that cut through right here. This is all pretty dark over here on the right. Actually, this is all really dark. I'm just gonna drop this in a little bit more, and we're gonna push the even darker areas further. So I'm kind of losing these tree trunks, but when I come back, I'm gonna make that dark and we'll be able to see that again. I just need to make all of this a little bit darker. This is definitely dark in the background there. There we go. It's pretty dark over here too. Okay, so now, like I said, we're gonna do the next pass. So this is going to be a couple notches darker, but I'm still using the same two colors, and I'm going to look for the areas that are the darkest. Let's see, I'm looking at your comments here. They scroll through so quickly that I have to kind of peek at them. I think I saw Belinda in Canada. Welcome. All right. It'd be nice if like the Facebook people could make a little ding or something whenever there's like an important question that I'm missing. Maybe they could work that into their app. Okay, so this is a notch or two darker, and I'm looking, and this tree right here is definitely one of the darker ones. So we're gonna put that in and make that one stand out at us and pop forward so that it kind of separates itself from some of those other dark shapes. And then this tree that's on an angle here is pretty dark, so we're gonna push that one. And you know, since I've got my paint really watered down, that helps me to get it to really flow. All right, then we've got another one that's kind of overlapping this chunk that's kind of dark right here. And let's see, this one kind of comes down in front of that one. So some of these are kind of in a clump of trees right here. Let's go back to this one that I mentioned that was pretty easy to find. So we're gonna drop that in. And then it gets some kind of big chunks of dark up here. So we'll just put those in. And I'm using, let's see, I'm using a number 3 brush, but it really depends on the brand. These are Royal Langnickel. This is actually a big classroom pack that I just bought. It's like a 60 pack, but it has a lot of brushes in it, and they're pretty good. I just really like flat tip brushes, and I like anything that is a new brush. That's always better than a more expensive old brush, because they just get worn out. Doesn't matter how good of brushes they are, how well you take care of them. It just happens, or at least that's what happens to me. All right. So, and I've had some people ask about doing this process that I teach in oil, and I've had some of you do it. The only kind of main difference with the oil is that you would probably want to do this underpainting phase in acrylic so that it would dry fast enough, and then you could layer your oils on top of it. Or if you really wanted to do it all in oil, you just have to wait in between your layers. And that definitely works too. I've done some oil painting. When I was in college, we did everything in oil. But I just really like to move quickly and kind of complete the whole painting fast. So for me, the acrylics work really nice for that. Okay, so I think I got all those pretty dark shapes over here. Then I'm gonna look over on the other side. It's pretty dark right here, and definitely up at the top, it's really dark here. Another good little tip I can give is to get away from your canvas. So like right now, you guys can't see my head, but I'm probably my head's probably like almost 3 feet from this little panel. But that really helps me to just get a broader picture of what I'm doing and to kind of widen my focus of this piece. And that's also why, you know, having these long handle brushes is helpful. Because I can get further away and still reach everything for the most part. Okay, let's see, we've got a little dark right there. Okay, then I'm gonna put some more detail into my people here because his coat is dark. And then he's got a white hat, so I won't put that in too dark. And then his left leg here is lighter than the right leg because the right leg is walking, at least the lower part is coming at me. And the left foot is darker. And then she's a little bit darker too. Put a little shading in there, and I'll probably have to do a little tweaking with the shape of her. We've got one leg coming out at me, and then we see the bottom of the foot there. So her shape really kind of comes to a point. We don't even really see too much of both of the legs. And then she's got a dark hat, so put that in there. Okay, put some larger shapes in right here of dark. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit here. I should have grabbed myself a glass of water before I started. Oh well, okay. So I think now I'd like to do the wash of the underpainting. Put a little bit more dark in here. So I like to do a complementary color underpainting, which means I like to take a color that's kind of opposite on the color wheel from what the actual color will be. So for landscapes where I have a lot of green, the opposite of green on the color wheel is red. And so I could use a red for my underpainting, but I don't know if I want to. I think I might use magenta actually, because I really like magenta for underpainting, or maybe I'll use some magenta and some red. Now we want to make sure that this shading layer is dry. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just scooping up any big globs of this dark that I have, because I don't want that to blend in with the next pass that we're going to do. So just kind of scooping that up, and then we'll talk more about that underpainting wash. So basically I'm gonna do kind of that magenta or red over like most of it over here. But the lower left here, this is kind of more like a reddish orange, the brown tone there for the ground. And so opposite of that would be more of like a blue. So I think instead of blue though, I'm going to use purple. Purple and blue can kind of be interchanged. So I'm going to grab a larger brush. I'm going up to an 8 here. And I'm gonna start with my wash here because this is all pretty dry. So I'm going to use Permanent Violet Dark by Golden. And I'm going to put a wash of that, of course watered down, down here at the bottom where it's going to be orange or where it's going to be brown. I'm gonna put my purple down. So we're gonna start there. And that's about all I need. Okay, so now I'm going to use my magenta that I mentioned earlier. I'm gonna use quinacridone, that's hard to say, magenta. And the quinacridone magenta is actually not too far off from the Permanent Violet Dark, but we're gonna push this magenta, call it more of a red. So I'm gonna just wash this in. But the area that's very bright here, I'm going to put my underpainting in pretty bright. So I'm gonna have the paint really thin there in those areas of light. And then the places where it's going to be darker, like up in the shadows up here, there I can put the magenta in a little bit heavier because that's going to help me to kind of create that atmosphere that I've got going on here. So it's very dark over here, and then it gets lighter where the light is pouring in between the trees there. And I'm just going right over all these shadows. Now you might say, okay, her coat is bright red, you should do the opposite, but on a small painting like this, I'm not gonna pick and choose every little thing. So I'm just gonna go right over that. And we'll continue with the magenta, but like I mentioned, I'm not gonna do magenta the whole way just because I wanna make it a little more interesting, change it up a little. So I'm gonna put this magenta in, we'll do it kind of dark up here, and then I'm gonna switch to red because I want to. So now I'm gonna switch and I'm gonna grab Pyrrole Red Light actually, which is like an orangey red. And I'm gonna put that over here because it will look fun and more interesting and just kind of break up all that tone. So we're gonna drop the Pyrrole Red in right here. There. So that is our underpainting wash, guys. We have done it. Now it's starting to dry a little bit, and I'm going to go back and probably push some areas a little bit darker. Down here at the bottom where I put my purple in, it really got kind of light on me, so I'm gonna do another pass of that Permanent Violet Dark, especially in the areas that I know are gonna be more in shadow. So that'll be over here. I know it's going to be darker. I'm gonna put that in. It's like a wedge of shadow coming through right there. And over here, we've got a highlight right here where they're standing. So we're gonna leave that how it is. And I'm squinting to see where else I should maybe darken this magenta a little bit. I'm trying to kind of dry it, scooping up the wet stuff. Now, if I was on my own, I would probably just like wait for this to dry. But since I'm here with you and you don't want to sit around watching paint dry, I'm trying to just kind of scoop it up and get it to dry as fast as I can here. Yeah, I'm just gonna push this dark a little bit more with a little more magenta. And I think that's probably good. So then it's gonna be time to start pushing the actual colors that we see, those green and brown tones that are going to be all through this forest here. Pushing this a little bit more. Okay, I think that is pretty good. I've got kind of a lot of stuff spilling up at the bottom. I'm gonna catch that. There we go. Okay. So we've got our underpainting complete and hopefully starting to dry. All right, maybe just so that we can keep going, let's put these people in because this is pretty dry. So I think we could do that. So I am definitely going to switch back to my smaller brush. I'm actually gonna go down to my 1 now to get in a little bit more detailed. And I'm gonna start with his navy blue coat. So I'll make that navy blue using Payne's Gray and a little bit of alizarin crimson just to make it not quite so blue. And then I'm gonna put a little drop of titanium white in there because it needs to be just a little bit lighter. And now as we're layering on top of the underpainting, I'm going to start thinning my paint with medium or glaze rather than water. So I'm using Liquitex matte medium right now, but I'm not picky about glaze. I always mention that because everyone wants to know what glaze I'm using, but that's it. And it doesn't really matter what glaze you use. So I just don't really like a shiny glaze. So, okay. So this is kind of a navy. I need to lighten it just a pinch. It's a little too dark. But we're just gonna find the dark shape of his coat, and it's really, there's not a lot to it. We're just gonna kind of put it all in the same color there. He's got a little hood there. And then I think that left leg, I'm gonna use this blue as well because that left leg is pretty dark. And then we'll use this dark for her hat too, that little bit of hat that we see. And her left leg, we just see a little sliver of it, and we're gonna put that dark navy color in there. Okay, so I know that they are kind of tiny on here, so hopefully maybe you are watching this on a TV and you can see them a little bit bigger. So now let's do the blue jeans. So that is more of a true blue. So I'm going to get myself a little bit of phthalo blue, and I'm going to add that to my mixture, and then a little bit of white. So that's gonna be more of like the blue jean denim blue. I'm just adding it right into that mixture that I had. And I'm gonna put that little highlight on the leg. It's not quite bright enough. I'm gonna have to go back, but I'm gonna get hers right there. And I'm gonna add a little more white and get that highlight just a little brighter on his leg. Get it right in there. That's pretty good. Then let's make his hat kind of this bluish color too. I'm just gonna add a little more white to it to brighten it up, and we'll get his little hat in there. Just a little bit. Okay, good deal. And let's see, let's put the red in for her coat. So her coat in the image is more of like a red. So I'm gonna use a little bit of my Pyrrole Red Light and a little bit of the magenta. So those two together will make more of like a fire engine red. And we're gonna drop this in here, and then we're gonna have to make a lighter red for the highlights, but we're just gonna get some of this color on here first. And then I'm gonna add some white to it, and I'm gonna put this pinky tone in where I see these highlights. So there's a highlight on the hood, and it's not looking very bright or intense right now because we've got this magenta in the background, so that's making it not pop, but I promise once we cover up some of that magenta with some green, then her body will start to kind of stand out a little bit more. But for right now, we're just gonna get some of this color in here, and we're gonna move along. All right, let's put a little highlight where her foot is. We're gonna make, it's kind of a yellowy green color. I'm gonna use Hansa yellow, a little bit of white, and a little bit of Payne's Gray, and just put that little highlight on her foot so that it looks like she has a foot. And then we're gonna start painting the background. We don't wanna get too hung up on these figures. Her foot got a little big, but let's not worry about that for right now. Let's move into the background because I think it's probably dry now. Okay, so we're gonna start with the lightest areas of light piercing through the trees. So we're going to make kind of a minty color. And we will make that using white and phthalo green blue shade. And we need to tone it down. We're gonna add a little Hansa yellow opaque to it, make it a little more yellowy, a little more white. And then we need to tone it down a little bit. So we're going to actually put a little bit of alizarin crimson in there to tone it down. So reds will always tone your greens down because they are opposite on the color wheel, right? And now I'm gonna thin it out with a little bit of glaze. And I'm going to start dropping this into the background where I see it the brightest. And I want to, of course, point out that I'm going to leave little bits, little windows of that pink popping through. And I know on the screen for you, these areas probably look straight white, but they're not actually straight white. Some of that is just reflection from my lighting here, unfortunately. So just trust me when I say they're not straight white. They're much more green. So I'm looking for these little windows and kind of varying up my brush strokes, cutting into these shadows that I've put in there. But I can't stress this enough to remember to leave those little bits of pink. We can always cover them up later, but they really do look cool and they make the other colors pop when they're contrasted by that green tone. And this green is gonna help me to kind of shape up the figure here because it kind of lost that arm a little bit. Now she's kind of got her hand in her coat. We don't really see it. So just kind of moving around, we see some of this green around here. And coming on the other side of this branch. So I'm really varying up the direction of the brush strokes because we've got these branches that are growing in all different directions. So we're kind of painting the light that is surrounding them, and that's going to be pretty random. You won't have any like big long brush strokes right here because these are all just kind of small windows of light. Maybe a few long brush strokes. I say that and then I go start laying down long brush strokes. I'm trying not to be confusing for you. Let me know if you guys have any questions about what's going on here, why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm always trying to check back and see if you have anything to say about it. I'm putting this one little skinny stroke in. This is actually a branch, but I'm just gonna catch it with this light color here. Over here on the right, it gets a little bit darker. So I think I might darken my color pretty soon to catch some of these little windows that are over here. So let's do that. I'm gonna put a little bit more of the phthalo green in there. Just a tiny pinch more. And maybe a little bit more of my alizarin crimson too to knock it down a little bit so it's not too emerald green. It's very easy to use too much phthalo green and then the whole thing starts to look very unrealistic. So always err on the side of dulling your greens down with some red and they will look a lot more natural. Got some little windows here. You can see this new green is just a little bit darker than the color that I had put down earlier. Just a little bit. And maybe we'll use some of this up here. Just looking for these major shapes. Trying not to get too hung up on the details. Okay, so now I want to make more of a yellowy green because over here it's still pretty bright over in this area, but it's not that cool green. It's more of like a yellowy brown green. So I'm going to keep using my same mixture here, but I'm going to add some more yellow to it, and I'm going to add more alizarin crimson to it. So that's going to kind of brown it out a little bit more. And then a little bit more white too. So basically more of everything except for the phthalo green. Maybe did a little too much yellow there. We'll see how this color looks. Maybe a little more of that alizarin crimson, kind of brown it out a little bit. Okay, so this I'm going to, yeah, I like that. I'm gonna put a little bit of glaze in there to thin it out. But yeah, we wanted to have more of like this kind of yellowy olive sort of mustard green. I'm using a lot of describing words. Okay, so we're gonna put some of this here in the background. And some of this green is gonna catch the tree trunks too. So a lot of the time, you know, there's moss growing on the tree trunks, so they're not all gonna be brown. There's gonna be quite a bit of green tone actually on our branches, and maybe I'll just put this branch in with the green tone as well, and I can make it a little more brown later. But yeah, I'm gonna look, and I've got some other branches over here that are more of like this green tone, so I can just kind of drop those in there. All these different colors are really gonna be kind of bouncing off of each other. And kind of mixed through the forest here with all these different tones. But this yellowy green, I like how it kind of contrasts some of the other colors. All right, let's keep looking around here. We've got some around the man that's walking here. We're gonna put that little window between his arm. And actually some of that yellowy color is kind of coming down on the pathway here now that I look at it a little more closely. We've got some of it on the brown. We'll put more brown in there later, but for right now, I like those little bits of highlight that are on the land there. So still just using the same kind of yellowy green color and dropping it in between here where I see little bits of highlight. All right. So now I think we might do more of this color later, but before we get too carried away with it, I want to move on and put some other tones in here so that we don't run out of time. So now let's start putting in some of the dark tones. So we've got a lot of that dark up here on the edges, and we've also got some like kind of cool blue piercing through down at the bottom. Let's actually do that blue first. Let's paint those in between little windows of color. So it's this kind of, yeah, cool blue right there. So let's make that using Payne's Gray. Let's see, do I have a dry spot there? Let's move over here. Let's make that using Payne's Gray, a little bit of titanium white, some phthalo blue, and some alizarin crimson. A little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit more phthalo. That might be what I'm looking for, maybe not. You know, that's too much of a green blue, I think. So how could I change that? I'm gonna try a different blue recipe. Good thing I didn't put it on there. We're gonna do phthalo blue, and we're gonna add a little bit of permanent dark violet to it. That'll do it, and then some white. That's gonna be more of like a blue blue. And we'll thin it out with some glaze. See how some of that looks. Okay, yeah, this might be a little too intense, but we're gonna go with it for right now. So this was phthalo blue, permanent dark violet, and white. We can tone some of this down later. It gets a little bit lighter up here, so I'm gonna add some more white. A little bit brighter here. And then it gets even more lighter, so I'm gonna add a little more white. And put some of that in between up here. Yeah. All right, that works. Okay, now we're gonna start putting some of those darks in that I mentioned. Okay, so let's do the very darkest darks, which are gonna be like these branches over here and up here. And we're going to make those using Payne's Gray and alizarin crimson. So this is kind of my recipe, my go-to recipe for dark darks. It's basically like a very like inky purple. And this is going to look real dark against the other tones, hopefully. And we're just looking for those very darkest areas. So in some places I'm going to be going back over some of my tree trunks to kind of push those back, like, or pull them out, I should say, because a lot of times they kind of get a little bit lost once we've added some of the other colors. So just kind of pushing along with this nice dark, almost black. I never ever buy black. I think it's totally a waste. Don't ever buy black. Because it's just nicer to mix your black. Oh, I got a little bit of white in there. That's not good. Our light is changing in here, and I noticed that you have a little bit of a glare on the screen. So I'm going to see what I can do here for you. Let's see if I can change my light so you don't have that. Can't promise anything, but that didn't really help us. Let's see here. This time of day, my light is changing. Oh, that didn't really help us either. Okay, we're just gonna go with it, guys. Sorry, that's a live video. All right, so we're going to keep going with these dark areas. And I'm still doing my best here to keep a lot of those underpainting colors. Don't want to lose them. So I'm kind of leaving those little windows of those bright colors in there. I'm gonna mix some more of my dark up here. Oh, we got that one cutting through there, and I wanted to keep that. I might have to put that back. You'll notice my tree trunks are not like these perfectly straight lines. So they're very kind of wiggly, but it's not like in a forced way. So I'm trying to just kind of stay random with it because we don't want it to feel like, I don't know, like you're trying too hard to make those tree trunks look perfect, because they're not. You also don't want it to feel like you're trying too hard to make them not perfect. So it's kind of a delicate balance, I guess I'll say. And this is kind of like, you know, the push and the pull. We were painting in the areas of light around the branches, but then some of my branches got a little bit too skinny. So now I'm kind of pulling them back again after I put them in the first time. And now over here, we don't have a lot of detail. We've just got some large shapes of dark coming through. So I'm kind of changing up my brush strokes and just kind of dropping those large areas in here. But it's not totally dark. It starts getting lighter. And so then we're gonna start needing to put more definition here where there's some leaves. But before I do that, I want to put this kind of orangey brown color on that's down on the bottom on the path. So we will, we'll make that orangey brown using using Pyrrole Red Light and Hansa Yellow Opaque, and a little bit of Payne's Gray to kind of dull that down. So Pyrrole Red Light, Hansa Yellow Opaque, and Payne's Gray. So this is gonna make a nice orange tone that we're gonna put in here. And we'll start putting some of that over our purple, but not covering up all the purple. Pretty much what I say always. And you know, still leaving some of those dark shadows in there. Okay, and got some dark right here. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of white to it to lighten it up a little bit, and a little more yellow. We didn't have any white in there before. So we're gonna make this nice lighter tone. So this lighter tone is white, Hansa Yellow Opaque, Pyrrole Red Light, and some Payne's Gray. It's a lot of colors, I know. We might need to make this look a lot brighter now that I look at it. Got a little bit coming through the path right here. But I do see some of this kind of yellowy tone bouncing around on the trees here, so I'm going to use it for this tree right here. It's not quite the right color, but it's close enough. I'm gonna add a little bit more red to it. A little bit more of that pyrrole red. Put it on this tree. And we've got another one over here, kind of poking through. Another one right here. So I'm squinting to see where else I see this color coming through, or where else I see things that are close to this color. It doesn't need to be exact. We'll put a little bit of it right there. Okay. Now, let's push that bright spot on the path a little bit brighter. So we're gonna add some more white and some more yellow. So this is gonna be a lot brighter, but I'm still using the same little puddle. And I'm just gonna put this nice bright spot there, because this really is pretty bright. And it's kind of bright in the background here. We're gonna drop that in. Some of that bright. Got a little bright highlight on the tree behind this one. That's kind of glowing. We can use it on this one too. So I'm just like layering a lot of different colors here, but it's going to start to come together, I'm pretty sure. Okay, I haven't done a lot of like the branches in here, and those are more of like a real green. So let's make that green. How are we gonna make that green? Let's make that green using phthalo green, blue shade, and some Hansa Yellow Opaque. Now those two together are gonna make like this crazy intense green, which we don't want. We're gonna add a little bit of white to it. I need to get some more Hansa Yellow. So put some more Hansa Yellow in there. And now we need to tone it down. So I'm gonna put some, what am I gonna put? I'm gonna put some Pyrrole Red Light in there to tone it down. See what happens. Maybe a little more of that phthalo green. Let it get a little bit more green, not too much. I think I like that. I don't know, you guys can see that color? Yeah, you can see that color. Okay, so I'm gonna use this to put a little bit more definition. It maybe needs to get a little bit darker, but I'm gonna put it maybe over here where it's gonna be lighter first, and then I'll make it a little bit darker. Got some of this on the land here. Yeah, we do need to get it a little bit darker. Put a couple little clumps of highlight in there with that. All right. Got some of it coming through there, showing where the land is. We haven't really done that yet. Okay, we've got a couple little pops of it over here, just a few that are kind of piercing through the shadows. Okay, yeah, over here is about probably that same color. Okay, so now let's make it a little bit darker. So we're gonna add a little more paint, or a little more of the phthalo green and a little bit more of the pyrrole red to offset it again. A little more phthalo green, a little more pyrrole red. Making this new green a few notches darker. And we'll use that for some of this kind of foliage, some of these brush branches here. It's starting to make a little more sense. Okay, we have a little bit of that over here. I wish you guys could see how much squinting I do. It really helps you to kind of just simplify these shapes, because there is a lot going on here and we just can't paint all of it in an hour. We can't even get close. So we're just trying to look for like these major shapes. And I'm probably getting rid of a lot of the branches that maybe I had outlined earlier, but some of it is I just want to kind of do what's most important, and maybe I outlined a little too much. It's always kind of hard to tell when I'm doing the outlines for the download how much we'll be able to do in 1 hour, but we're getting there. Plus this is a little bit different than a lot of my other paint-alongs, but it's coming together, I think. Let's see here. I want to do some of these little windows that are peeking through up here, through these branches. Those little windows of light, and they're kind of like a pretty blue tone. So let's do those. Let's make a blue using Payne's Gray, tiny bit of phthalo blue, and some white. Let's see how that looks together. I think that works. And now I switched back down to my little #1 brush because I want to get a little bit more detailed here. And I just want to put some of those little windows in, kind of leave them a little smaller, and kind of switching this up and having these different size brush strokes. That's going to be good for the overall effect here too. We don't want all of our brush strokes to be like the exact same size. Another tip that I can give is to not space them all out the same way. Like if you kind of find yourself getting carried away and starting to look a little bit robotic with these windows of light, you gotta stop and kind of move somewhere else so that you don't overwork an area with a bunch of shapes that look the same. Now I'm gonna go back and add a little more white to it. For the even brighter little areas poking through. So we're gonna push that a little more. Just push those. We kind of start in the middle and we just kind of, push our way towards the light, push our way towards the dark. All right, so I can see when I look at this that my very brightest area is not as bright as on the reference image, the very brightest area. So I need to go in and kind of clean that up a little bit. I wish that we didn't have that glare on the reference image so that you all could see it better. I apologize for that. Okay, let's go in and, like I said, brighten that brightest area up. And I'm just gonna have some fun with this color. I'm going to make it really pretty minty, even mintier than what I really see, because I want to. So I'm gonna make this mint color using phthalo green and white, and just a tiny bit of Hansa yellow opaque. But it's gonna be a lot of white. It's gonna be mostly white because we really want to push that area. And I took my small brush here because I want to kind of get detailed around this figure, kind of clean up the shape a little bit. So I'm going to do that. And I see that light is kind of spilling over here. Maybe I got a little too bright. I'm gonna add a little more green and yellow back into my mixture. Just a pinch more. It looks a little too much like almost all white there. So put a little bit more dark back in. And kind of have this color wrapping around this guy. Because they're really kind of our focal point here. So I'm gonna get a little bit more specific around them and around this tree here. Yeah, you can see it's starting to feel like that light is kind of spilling out around them. That's what we're going for here. And now it's much darker on the left side of him, so I don't want to do too much light over there. Maybe I'll offload my brush a little bit and just put a little dash of it on the other side of him. Add a little more yellow back into my mixture to make it a little bit more yellowy there, and kind of continue with this very brightest. Ooh, I got some chunks in my paint there. Ooh, take that out. All right, this light pushes its way up around here. Yeah, I like this color. So then we're gonna put a little bit more in up there, and this is definitely helping to kind of fine tune where this light is coming through the trees. We were missing this before. Yeah, I like this shape. See, but we had to do all this work beforehand to be able to make these little windows of light pop as we're adding them in. So we did the hard work first. Now we get to have the fun by adding these little pops and pizzazz here. We've earned it. It's the finishing touches that make it. I know it's always hard to know when a painting is done, but I feel like it's got to have that wow factor. Sometimes we kill it before we can get the wow factor. But sometimes it's just one little thing happens and then it all makes sense. I know this really is a lot of painting for just a 1 hour demo, and actually we're probably over, aren't we? Oh, we're right at 6. Boy, this is pretty good. I've been doing these demos for so long, I'm starting to get like this intuition when it's 6 o'clock and I need to be wrapping it up. So my internal timer was going off telling me, better make it happen. I still get a few minutes. You guys know I always go like 5 minutes over because I can't help myself. But I really do think we needed all these little bright areas here. We definitely did. I'll probably do a few more things too. And if you guys are enjoying this demo, can I just ask you to hit the share button? You can do it right now while you're watching. I would so appreciate that. I get more and more people all the time that are discovering these demos and really enjoying them because of people like you that are sharing them, and it helps me to keep going and be able to offer these. So I so appreciate it very, very much. So please go ahead and share this demo on your own profile page. That would be wonderful. All right. got a couple more there. Okay, I like all that light that was coming through here. I want to put some little bits of like bright lime green in there too, because I think that's gonna look really nice. Yeah, and let me know if you share it too so that I can say thank you to you, because a lot of times it'll show me how many shares there are, but it won't tell me, like, it won't show me who shared them. So yeah, let me know if you do that. Okay, so I'm making this new lime green using Hansa Yellow Opaque, white, and just a tiny speck of phthalo green. It's gonna be mostly the Hansa Yellow Opaque. It's gonna make a really nice bright green. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, you can see it. Okay, so we're gonna put this intense bright green down here at the bottom. And where else are we gonna drop this super bright green? Little bits in right there. It's definitely kind of wrapping around some of these branches here. And got some little bits there maybe. I need to add a little more green to it, a little more of the phthalo green. Yeah. So we've got these little branches here. Yeah, we were kind of missing those before. I had them in, but it was just a little too dark. We need to pop those out a little bit. That looks good. So there's a lot of different colors of green going on. I guess that's probably like the biggest takeaway from this is forests have a lot of different colors of green. And the way to make them look fun and natural is to mix all these different colors of green up. Put them where you see them, or put them where you want to see them, which is often what I do. Okay. I'm gonna add a little bit more phthalo green to it, make it a little bit more of an emerald green. This is kind of getting into a color that I don't really like, but I see a little bit of it and I think I wanna add it. I'm gonna put a little bit of glaze to thin it down just a pinch. And I'm gonna put a couple dashes of this color, just a few dashes of it over here. Yeah, I don't really like that color. I don't wanna do any more of it. I see some pretty intense like bluish teal in here, so I want to put a little bit of that in. So let's do that with phthalo green, phthalo blue, and white. That's going to make teal for us. I'm going to put a little teal in there. Phthalo green, phthalo blue, and white. And then we're gonna be pretty close to wrapping this piece up, at least for now. I like that. I just wanna put some of this blue tealish color in here, kind of in the background, piercing through some of these little windows here. Windows of light that I see. All right. And let's put this teal color on his pants too. Let's put a little bit of white in there, make it a little bit brighter, but there's like this highlight on his leg and I think I want to make it a little bit more noticeable. I'm just going to put that right there. Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's see, where are we at on time? Yeah, we're probably pretty close. I think maybe the last thing I want to do is go in with a little bit of straight white and put a couple pops of that straight white in. So I'm going to get my brush nice and clean and I'm going to go in with just, I think straight white, maybe a pinch of that mint. I'll dip it into that mint, just a tiny bit, that green mint that I made before. And I'm gonna look for where the very brightest areas are. And I see they are up here, right here. Some of my paint is still wet. But I save the brightest whites for the end, and you don't wanna put them everywhere, just the places where it's obviously the brightest. Got some bits right here. and maybe a little bit right here. Okay, I think I should probably stop before I overwork it. So there's the advice you need. Don't keep going if you know you're gonna overwork it. Just stop and walk away from it, even though I'm adding a little bit more green in right there. Just needed a little bit right there. Okay, I'm gonna stop so that I don't overwork this piece. I will give you a little close up there of it. So you can see it a little bit better. Again, thank you guys for watching this paint along. Thank you for sharing it. And this is always fun. I should tell you next week, I'm taking the week off. I'm going on spring break with my kiddos. So I will see you in 2 weeks for another paint along. If you didn't get your downloads for this one, you can still go on my website and get those. You can watch this as a replay here on my Facebook page or on my YouTube channel, Allie K Studio on YouTube. So I hope you will do that. And again, thank you for sharing this. And you guys all have a great week coming up. Thanks a lot. Take care.